Hey bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we're going to make this fun lotion, which is awesome for the holidays. So this is candy cane body lotion, named as such because it looks like a candy cane and it smells like a candy cane. The oils that we're making it out of are virgin coconut oil and unrefined cocoa butter, which smell amazing. And then to that we're going to add some peppermint, which gives us, that minty candy cane-ness, and some benzoin, which gives us that vanilla note that you sort of associate with candy canes. So on the whole, smells awesome and looks super cool. If you're familiar with making lotion, this stuff comes together really quickly. There's just a couple extra steps at the end. So at the point where you would usually just pour your lotion into the bottle, so you've added your essential oils, you've added your preservative, and the lotion is at room temperature. So at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to divide the lotion into two. So we'll have our white half and our pink half. So the white half, we'll just add some silver mica, optional but nice. And in the pink half, I'm going over 4 different ways in the video that you can tint that part pink. I do recommend aiming for pink rather than red because once the lotion is red, it's generally strongly pigmented enough to tint your skin, which isn't ideal. Once you have your 2 colored halves, we'll grab a tall bottle and a funnel, and you will use those to create the layers. So we'll pop the funnel in, and then you'll drop in some white, and then sort of boop it to let it settle down, and then we'll put in some pink, and then some white, and some pink, and etc, 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 until you have, et voila, candy cane body lotion. That's about it. So let's go make some lotion. All right, so here we have a heat-resistant glass measuring cup. In here we have 14 grams of a complete emulsifying wax. This is emulsifying wax NF, but you could also use BTMS 50, Pola wax, or Retamulse instead. In here we have 20 grams of cocoa butter, and make sure you choose the lovely, wonderful cocoa butter that still smells like chocolate for this project, as that really contributes to the scent of the final product. And in here we have 16 grams of virgin coconut oil. And just like with the cocoa butter, you want to make sure that you choose coconut oil that smells awesome and super coconutty and like pina coladas. So that's that part. And in here, I have 144 grams of just boiled water. And to that, I'm going to add half a teaspoon of silk peptides. And you could also use silk powder or silk amino acid or even liquid silk if that's what you got. Then in here we have 1/4 teaspoon of allantoin. And I hope I'm saying that right. That's one of those words that, I've seen written out a million times, but never actually really had to say out loud. And in here we have 6 grams of vegetable glycerin. So now I'm going to cover this little measuring cup with some foil to create a makeshift lid so we don't lose very much water when we do the heat and hold. So in here I have a wide flat bottom saute pan that's got about 1 inch or 3 centimeters of water in it. And I'm going to pop the 2 parts in here, and I'm going to go put this on the stovetop over medium-low heat for about half an hour. That'll help melt, or that will melt everything in here, and it will bring the water part up to temperature to help kill any bacteria that might be living in there. While we let our oil and water parts heat and hold, I thought we could take a look at a couple different colorant options that you can use to make the red stripes in this lotion. So here we have rosehip extract, and so this is 1/16 of a teaspoon mixed with a bit of vegetable glycerin to help it blend in. In here we have a reddish mica, so this is the Glitter Bordeaux from TKB Trading, but you could really use any sort of red or pink mica that you happen to have on hand. And so that's 1/32 of a teaspoon. In here we have 3 drops of liquid carmine dye. And so this is really just carmine that's been pre-distributed in castor oil. So if you have the powdered version of carmine, you can absolutely use it, but I would recommend pre-distributing it in a little bit of castor oil to make incorporation into the final lotion a little bit easier. And then over here we have red iron oxide. So this is 1/64 of a teaspoon mixed into a couple drops of castor oil to, again, make it easier to incorporate. So there's a couple benefits of each color. Obviously each one is a slightly different hue, and you'll really see that when we start adding lotion to them. I do find that any of the botanical extracts, and you could use, whatever kind of botanical extract you happen to have. I know a lot of people have beetroot powder and like to find use to that, so that would absolutely work. This will eventually oxidize and sort of turn gray and lose its color. The mica, of course, is going to have some shimmer to it, so if you're not a huge fan of shimmer, you might not like the mica option, but micas are a great product for tinting a product, but not necessarily tinting your skin. Carmine produces an absolutely stunning color. It's definitely the most expensive of these options. It won't oxidize and it is beautiful. It's also not vegan, so if that's a concern, you probably want to avoid carmine. And then red iron oxide is just a really good all-round pigment. With both of these, you need to be really careful not to accidentally make leg lipstick. I did have a reader once write in and say that she'd made this lotion, but she'd used red iron oxide instead of the botanical extract that I use in the written recipe on my blog, and she'd used it in the same amounts, and she'd accidentally made a lotion that was kind of like a really red self-tanner. So do be careful with, especially with these two, because they are really potent. So I just have a lotion here that I've already made that I'm just gonna add a little bit of a scoop of to each of these, and we'll blend it in to see what it looks like. So there you can see the colors are really different. So we have our rosehip extract, our mica, so this is the glitter Bordeaux mica, carmine, and red iron oxide. Personally, I find that I prefer these three shades and probably these two for this project. I find that the red iron oxide is a little bit too brown to really give that sort of candy cane hue that we are looking for here. So those are your options. Feel free to choose whichever one you want, and just remember to keep the potency in mind and the potential for oxidization and color shifting. So half an hour later, we are done our heat and hold process. So we can remove the measuring cups from the water bath and set the water bath aside. And in here this goes. And we can set this one aside, as well as our lid. So you can immediately see this has started to become quite milky looking, which is fantastic. It's just what we're looking for. So now we need our immersion blender, which really kicks this emulsion into gear. And if you're using an emulsifying wax other than BTMS 50 or Emulsimulse, you'll really want one of these so that the lotion thickens up enough that you can actually layer it in a reasonable amount of time. So you want to start with quick bursts. All right, I'm going to leave this to cool for about 10 minutes and then come back and blend it some more. So it's been 10 minutes and we'll come back for some more blending. You can see that this is still really, really thin and sort of milky, but at the very top there, it's starting to thicken up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna leave that for another 10 minutes. It's been another 10 minutes and this is still pretty thin, but you can see on the top we've got some clods. So we'll blend those in and I expect we'll see some noticeable thickening in this blending. You can see that this is getting thick enough to support its own weight. If we take a dollop of this and drop it on top, it actually stays there instead of just mixing in immediately as it would if it was still really liquidy. So it is still really quite warm. So I'm going to leave this to continue to cool before we add our essential oils and our preservative. "15 minutes later, and this has thickened up beautifully. So now we can add our essential oils and our preservative, and then we can start coloring this and putting it into our container in that lovely candy cane pattern. So in here I have 1 gram of liquid Germall Plus, And for our essential oils, we're going to use a blend of peppermint and benzoin. So peppermint, of course, gives that lovely candy cane mintiness, and benzoin brings the vanilla. So we're going to do about 4 blobs of benzoin. It's so thick that it doesn't really drop very effectively. And then about 20 drops of peppermint. So now we have our 2 halves, more or less. So this is going to be our white half. So to that half, I'm going to add some silver mica. So we'll do about half a teaspoon because the silver mica is just it's not hugely potent, so it's just going to add a little bit of shimmer. And then for our red part, I've decided to use a blend of the liquid carmine dye and the glitter Bordeaux mica. So we just want to work our way up to the color that we want slowly. You can always add more pigment, but it's pretty hard to take it out. So I'm going to add 1/32 of a teaspoon of the mica now. Make sure you're really scraping around and then scraping off your spatula and working everything down, working down to the bottom to make sure there aren't any trapped clumps of mica or carmine in here. So that looks pretty good to me. That looks like a nice contrast. And so we are ready to move that into our containers. So for this project, you're going to want to make sure that your container is clear, and I would recommend that it be quite tall and narrow. So when I first did the project, I used one of these. And so this is the original, and you can certainly see that it has no more stripes because I did use a botanical extract to color it, and it is completely oxidized, and you can just see the barest hint of there being sort of any stripes at all, but there's definitely no pink left here. So this was a good choice for the original as well. And you can also look at one of the smaller Boston Bullet bottles. So this is like this is a 250 milliliter bottle, and you can also get 120, so those were great. I do not recommend this approach. So this was another test of this lotion and I tried popping it in a glass jar, as you can see, and that really did not work out very well. So this here you can see is the layer I colored with the botanical extract. I made this version of this lotion about a month ago, and you can see that it has already oxidized and turned very gray. So I would not recommend the botanical extract if you have any other ingredients that will do the trick. To fill your bottle, you'll definitely need a funnel. So I have this one here, which I'm sure is quite a lot older than I am. I think I inherited it from my grandmother or even my great-great-grandmother. So I'll pop that in here, and I think I'll start with a white layer. So because this is quite thick, you're going to have to sort of stir it and press it through your funnel. So you can see it's not very even, so I'm going to tap the bottle on the counter to level it out a bit. This also helps knock out any air bubbles because this lotion is quite thick. All right, so I'm going to scrape as much of this residual lotion out of here so that it doesn't blend with the pink too much, and then we will do a layer of the pink lotion. And you can see we're starting to get some layers here, so rinse and repeat. Once you've finished layering everything up, you're done. You just made some candy cane body lotion. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and check the description box below for links to the full written recipe with all the amounts in metric and imperial and links to everything that I used in this video. See you next time!